Next year, action fans could look forward to another adventure from the John Wick universe. The previous John Wick movies, starring Keanu Reeves, were a huge success and are extremely popular. Now, the first spin-off, Ballerina, is just around the corner. In our new original, we reveal all the latest details about the plot, the cast, and the production. Stay tuned! Ana de Armas, known from Blade Runner 2049, Knives Out, or the Netflix hit The Gray Man, will take on the role of the eponymous Ballerina. De Armas already demonstrated in the last James Bond adventure, No Time to Die, that she is capable of action and is in no way inferior to her male colleagues. Some familiar faces from the John Wick movie series will also be back. Ian McShane as hotel owner Winston and Angelica Houston as the director have been confirmed to reprise their roles. Also joining the cast is The Walking Dead star Norman Reedus, who could be one of Ana de Armas' potential antagonists. Lance Reddick will also make a final appearance as concierge Charon. The actor passed away unexpectedly this spring, shortly after wrapping up filming on Ballerina. Keanu Reeves will return in his role of the popular hitman and will be part of the cast of Ballerina. This is definitely a good reason to celebrate. According to Collider, the Hollywood star was spotted filming the movie in Prague last November. However, it is not known to what extent John Wick's role will be in Ballerina's new solo adventure. The previous John Wick movies were mainly about the retired hitman of the same name, who has to face off against his former employer after his wife's death. Ballerina is another chapter from this world, but not a continuation of the main story. The first spin-off centers on a young female assassin on a quest for revenge against her family's killers. The connection of a ballet school with the underworld was already shown in John Wick 3, and is surely the origin of the idea for the spin-off. In fact, the plot of Ballerina is set between John Wick 3 and John Wick 4, but so far, the producers have not revealed any more details. For film distributor Lionsgate, the John Wick franchise is a total success. The last installment alone, John Wick Chapter 4, generated over $400 million worldwide on a budget of $90 million. Accordingly, it comes as little surprise that Lionsgate is also in charge of the planned spin-off. Len Wiseman is taking over the directing duties. His previous works include the Underworld films with Kate Beckinsale, the reboot of Total Recall, and the fourth installment of the popular Die Hard film series. Shooting took place in Prague, among other places, and was a challenging experience. Ana de Armas, for example, talked about the physically demanding filming on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. Quote, "I'm in pain. My body, my back, everything hurts. I'm complaining. I'm sore. I'm bruised. Bond was 15 minutes. This is a whole movie. Another level." She also reported on a rather difficult stunt scene with Keanu Reeves and was very impressed with her fellow actor. He would deliver one crazy performance after another, so she could hardly complain. We can therefore probably look forward to spectacular action again, including John Wick himself. The John Wick spin-off Ballerina will be released on June 7th, 2024. Until then, many fans are eagerly awaiting the first impressions of the killer ballerina story in sound and vision. We can't wait to bring you the first Ballerina teaser trailer. What's your opinion? Are you confident that the spin-off will match the quality of the main series? Or are you already done with the franchise and don't expect much from further movies and series from the John Wick universe? Share your thoughts with us in the comments. Something new from the world of giant robots. Transformers 1, a fully animated film, is coming to theaters and tells the prequel story of Optimus Prime and Megatron on their home planet Cybertron. Learn everything that is currently known about the new Transformers movie in this video. Recently, Paramount Pictures tried to breathe new life into the franchise with Transformers: Rise of the Beasts. The movie was supposed to be the prelude to a new trilogy, but sadly, without much success. With worldwide box office takings of $438 million, it failed to reach the level of its predecessors and is thus probably considered a disappointment. So now all hope is put in the animated spin-off Transformers 1, which can likely be produced at a much lower cost than a live-action movie. Real locations or actors are not required here anyway, as the prequel is set entirely on the Transformers' home planet. Transformers 1 comes with a top-class cast, which has already caused quite a stir. Thor star Chris Hemsworth will embody Optimus Prime, in a dubbing role of course, and Hemsworth is not the only Marvel veteran involved in the project. For instance, it was announced that Scarlett Johansson will dub the role of Alita, a member of the Autobots. The role of fan-favorite Bumblebee will be played by Keegan-Michael Key, and John Hamm will provide the voice of Sentinel Prime, Optimus Prime's mentor. Lawrence Fishburne, for his part, provides the voice for Alpha Trion. The Decepticons are led by Brian Tyree Henry, who will dub the supervillain Megatron. The star cast already shows that this is not a cheap production. The legendary director Steven Spielberg will once again be the producer, as well as Michael Bay, who already directed the first 5 films. The screenplay is by Andrew Barr and Gabriel Ferrari, who previously worked as writers for Ant-Man and the Wasp. Josh Cooley will direct the film. He was already able to win over the audience with Toy Story 4 and should be the perfect director for this animated action spectacle. Needless to say, there is a lot of excitement about what style Transformers 1 will have in the end. So far, there are no clues about the film's look, apart from artwork and lettering. As with the previous movies, though, the computer animations are by industry expert Industrial Light and Magic. Transformers 1 will return to the roots of the franchise and deal with the epic civil war between the Autobots and the Decepticons on Cybertron. The film is expected to tell the story of how Optimus Prime and Megatron went from former friends to bitter enemies. Lorenzo di Bonaventura, longtime producer of the series, already announced that we will see Cybertron in a way that we had never experienced before. Also featured are Sentinel Prime and Alpha Trion, one of the oldest Autobots ever. They are expected to play a major role in the story. A few years ago, Netflix already released an animated series called Transformers War for Cybertron, which also dealt with the Great War. Transformers 1 is currently still in production, and this has been temporarily suspended due to the current actors and writers' strike. If the strike continues for a longer period of time, the planned theatrical release on September 13, 2024 may not be feasible. Of course, we hope the production will resume soon. After all, we are eagerly awaiting the first images or even a teaser trailer that reveals more about the project. The producers already have big plans. Lorenzo di Bonaventura talked back in April about wanting to tell the prequel story of the Transformers in form of a trilogy. So, should Transformers 1 prove to be successful, we might be in for a Transformers 2 or a Transformers 3 as well. One thing seems certain anyway, fans can look forward to more movies for years to come. What do you think? Are you confident that the prequel will perform well? Are you fans of the Transformers? And if so, which one is your favorite movie? Please let us know in the comments. The Legend returns. The end-time thriller I Am Legend, released back in 2007 and starring Will Smith, is still considered a big favorite among fans of the genre, and also proved to be a financial success. In 2022, exactly 15 years after the release of the first movie, a sequel was officially announced. It will also star Will Smith once again as Robert Neville. That should raise some questions given the ending of Part 1. Well, in this new original, we'll tell you what the sequel is all about and give you all the early details. The plot of I Am Legend 2 will probably lead to a bit of confusion for those who know the predecessor. It was about Robert Neville, who is supposedly the last living human being in a post-apocalyptic world and has to fight for his survival. He spends the day hunting antelopes and sending radio messages to possible survivors of a global plague. At night, however, he hides, as it is dominated by the infected, who avoid the daylight. The end of the movie was rather sad. Robert catches an infected person and wants to test a potential cure on them. However, this causes other infected individuals to overrun his lab. In the ensuing battle, he dies, and his story thus seemed to be concluded. However, an alternate ending was included as part of the film's home release, which explains Robert's return in the sequel. He realizes that the infected aren't after him at all, but only want to free the woman he captured. He also discovers that the infected are not soulless undead at all, but intelligent beings. They have created their own society and simply want to be left alone. After the infected person is freed, Robert is able to join other survivors on a journey to one of the last camps where other humans still exist. I Am Legend 2 picks up on the alternative ending of Part 1 and will tell a new story based on it. In an interview with Deadline, screenwriter Akiva Goldsman stated that the sequel will adhere more closely to the novel. According to him, the famous novel by Richard Matheson was about the fact that humanity's time as the dominant species on the planet had come to an end. That, he said, was a very interesting point to explore further. The theatrical ending, which was reshot under pressure from the movie studio, totally excluded this aspect of the novel. Lead actor Will Smith also talked about the sequel in an interview with Entertainment Tonight at the beginning of 2022. At first, he didn't believe in a sequel, but when he heard about the idea on which Part 2 will now be based, he was convinced that I Am Legend 2 could become a good film. He couldn't reveal any more details yet, but Smith believes it's a really cool concept. Goldsman disclosed that the famous video game The Last of Us will be used as an inspiration, having already been implemented in a magnificent series this year. The game impressively shows how nature reclaimed the Earth after the outbreak of a pandemic, which they also want to illustrate using New York as an example. On the one hand, this statement is a bit surprising, since I Am Legend already depicted a New York dominated by nature many years before The Last of Us, and in turn also served as an inspiration for The Last of Us. On the other hand, the mention of the city itself attracts attention, since Robert and his companions actually leave the city at the end of Part 1, at least in the version they want to refer to. Will Smith won't be the only big name in I Am Legend 2. At his side, we will see Creed star Michael B. Jordan. The actor has already played a number of impressive roles and recently made his directing debut with Creed 3. First theories say that he could possibly play the son of Robert Neville. Will Smith revealed that Jordan also contributed significantly to the development of Part 2. Akiva Goldsman was already in charge of penning the script for Part 1 and is continuing to do so for the follow-up. According to him, Part 2 is set a few decades after Part 1, and it will be important to check whether Will Smith has to be portrayed as older for the plot than he actually is. Whether I Am Legend director Francis Lawrence will also take over the direction again is still unclear. We can look forward to seeing how the project turns out in the coming months. Originally, a theatrical release was planned for 2024, but this seems rather unrealistic at the moment given the writers and actors strikes. Those involved, though, leave no doubt that I Am Legend 2 will be released sooner or later. In any case, there doesn't appear to be any lack of motivation. What about you guys? Are you fans of I Am Legend? And were you already acquainted with the alternative ending? Which one did you like more? And do you think there's more to the story? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. It's time for another Mortal Kombat. 2 years ago, Warner Bros. Presented us with a new live-action movie for the popular franchise, which comprises 12 games and has sold over 80 million copies worldwide. With Mortal Kombat 2, we can soon look forward to the highly anticipated sequel, which is also expected to be extremely brutal. In our new original episode, we give you all the latest information on the plot, cast, and production of the video game adaptation. Enjoy! There was one thing in particular that fans of the series found lacking in the predecessor: the eponymous tournament. The objective is to prevent the 10th consecutive victory of Shang Tsung and his henchmen, which would give Outworld control of the Earth. In the first movie, there was talk of this, but ultimately the villains were just trying to prevent another contest from happening at all. Part 1 ended with Shang Tsung admitting defeat in the battle against Cole Young and his allies, and now vowing revenge by returning with an entire army. Of course, that doesn't sound as if the classic tournament will finally be featured in Mortal Kombat 2. However, it was not yet clear at the time whether the movie would be a success at all. So, of course, they wanted to tease the biggest thing possible. In addition, some of the actors already have contracts for multiple movies. Co-writer of the first movie, Greg Russo, told Collider that he personally sees the reboot as a trilogy. The first movie takes place before the tournament, the second movie during it, and Mortal Kombat 3 after. So, the chances are good that the war between Earth and Outworld as the grand finale will have to wait a little longer, perhaps in favor of the tournament, which will be anything but clear-cut. At the end of Part 1, Cole Young sets off to recruit a number of other champions for the upcoming fight. Much to the delight of fans, it becomes apparent that Johnny Cage is involved in Mortal Kombat 2. The Hollywood star is one of the most frequently recurring characters in the entire franchise. At first glance, he is characterized by his big mouth and his selfish and materialistic nature. Over the course of the games, however, he develops into one of the most important fighters on Earth and is considered a faithful and loyal companion. It can therefore be strongly assumed that the fan favorite will play a major role in the sequel. There has been one question above all others since the release of the previous movie. Who will play Johnny Cage in Mortal Kombat 2? Well, the role of the iconic character will be played by Karl Urban, who should be familiar to most movie and series viewers thanks to the Amazon hit series The Boys. As a result, fans were very excited when Urban was confirmed for the role of Johnny Cage. For many, he was the perfect fit for the character. At the start of filming, producer Todd Garner posted a photo showing Urban together with the majority of the cast. Actor Louis Tan, known from Shadow and Bone and Deadpool 2, was already able to make an impression in Part 1 in the role of Cole Young, and will thus also return in Mortal Kombat 2. Also reprising the roles are Jessica McNamee as Sonya Blade and Josh Lawson as Kano. Others already confirmed include Tadanobu Asano as Raiden, Hiroyuki Sanada as Scorpion, and the Raid star Joe Taslim as Sub-Zero. Besides Johnny Cage, other new additions await us. The cast of the action movie will be joined by Tati Gabrielle as Jade and Adeline Rudolph as Princess Kitana. It was also revealed via Deadline that Martin Ford will take on the role of the mighty conqueror Shao Kahn. Desmond Kayam will play King Jared, Anna Tu-Win will be seen as Queen Sindel, and Damon Harriman will appear as Quan Chi. Anyone who has listened carefully will have noticed that some characters who actually died in the predecessor will be making an appearance. Director Simon McQuaid said that the game series had already shown various ways in which characters who had already been killed off could return to the story of Mortal Kombat. We are curious to find out how exactly this will happen in the movie sequel. Although filming on Mortal Kombat 2 started in June 2023, it was then put on hold for a long time due to the actors and writers' strike, as was the case with many other productions. With the end of the strikes, work can finally resume, but it remains unclear how long production will last and whether the previously envisaged release in 2024 is still realistic. Nevertheless, Mortal Kombat 2 is expected to hit theaters in 2025 at the latest. With the first movie, Simon McQuaid celebrated his directing debut, and he will also assume this position in Mortal Kombat 2. The screenwriter is Jeremy Slater, who previously worked on the Disney series Moon Knight with Oscar Isaac and also worked on Netflix's quirky superhero series The Umbrella Academy. He is joined on the script by Ed Boon, the creator of the video games. The movie is being produced in part by James Wan and Michael Clear with their production company Atomic Monster. So what's next for the film series? In a podcast for Variety magazine, Sub-Zero actor Joe Taslim spoke about having signed on for a total of 4 more Mortal Kombat movies. According to him, the future of the series is of course also dependent on the success of the second part. Yet this announcement might give us hope for the time being, as it seems that they still believe in the potential of the franchise. How do you feel about it? Did you like the reboot? And are you looking forward to the sequel? Which storylines from the games would you like to see in the movies? Share your thoughts in the comments, and give this video a thumbs up if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future. Many of the Lord of the Rings fans were taken by surprise when The War of the Rohirrim was announced as an animated film. Besides euphoria, there was also a big amount of skepticism regarding the movie, which takes place about 260 years before Frodo's journey to Mount Doom. As the name The War of the Rohirrim suggests, this time the focus is on a very specific group of people, the inhabitants of Rohan, who already played a particular role in the Two Towers. The prideful horsemen have surely left a lasting impression on many, which makes the story about their background all the more exciting. One more reason for us to take a more in-depth look at all the current facts about the production and the plot. And while not all of you are anime fans, it seems that something very special is waiting for us this time. For the movie The War of the Rohirrim, New Line Cinema and Warner Bros. Animation are in charge of the production. The project has already been in the making for almost 2 years and holds the promise of winning the hearts of fans. This is because the creative direction is in the hands of the highly respected anime director Kenji Kamiyama, who is most associated with cult anime such as Ghost in the Shell and Ultraman. Kamiyama has also made a name for himself at Warner Bros. Before, where he created the thrilling anime series Blade Runner Black Lotus. The first people to talk about the new Lord of the Rings movie are already stating that the animation is very reminiscent of the anime from the 90s. But don't worry, the magical spirit of the earlier Lord of the Rings films will probably remain in this new work as well. Peter Jackson's iconic visions served as a significant inspirational source for countless scenes in the upcoming film. According to the makers, the challenge was to convert the world and characters into an animated style without losing the charm of the original films. Daniel Faulkner, the art director of the movies, was instrumental in achieving this goal. Together with the creative team, he immersed himself in the archives to find the familiar models from the past films and further shape them. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to watch a trailer or teaser yet, but there is still some time until the movie's release anyway. It was recently postponed from April to the end of next year. Now, The Lord of the Rings: The War of the Rohirrim is scheduled to hit theaters on December 13th, 2024. Ever since the Amazon series The Rings of Power, if not earlier, we have known about the great significance of the ages in Tolkien's world. While the first age ends with the defeat of Morgoth, the series is set in the second age, which concludes with the apparent demise of Sauron. The War of the Rohirrim is now set at a very particular time in the Third Age, more precisely, in the year 2758, exactly 260 years before Gandalf sends Frodo on his way with the ring. This is called the Time of the Long Winter, because Rohan was completely snow-covered for more than 5 months. The makers of the movie obviously rely even more on references to the Norse mythology here. After all, Rohan was already strongly reminiscent of Viking culture in the old movies. The new Lord of the Rings movie is about the big conflict between the Rohirrim and the Dunlendings. So here's a quick summary of the meaning of these names. The Rohirrim, also known as the Riders of Rohan, are a proud people of humans living in the region of Rohan. Their history dates back to the First Age of Middle-earth. They are originally descended from the Northmen, who eventually settled in the area that would eventually become Rohan. The Rohirrim are famous for their horsemanship and their deeply established horse culture. Horses are of crucial importance to them, and the connection between people and horses is a central part of their lives. They breed and care for horses that are particularly suitable for war. The society of the Rohirrim is divided into several kingdoms, with the King of Rohan being the supreme ruler. The capital of Rohan is Edoras, where the Golden Hall of Meduseld is situated, the king's seat. The Rohirrim are also known for their love of poetry and their people's ancient language. The Dunlendings were originally a tribe of people who lived in the western parts of Rohan before the Rohirrim moved into the region. The Dunlendings enjoyed a long history and culture before they were displaced by the Rohirrim. This led to a strong enmity between the two peoples. The Dunlendings lived mainly from livestock and agriculture and were widely known as herdsmen. Their community was organized into tribes, and they had their own deities and customs. The conflict between the Dunlendings and the Rohirrim lasted for centuries. The Rohirrim eventually conquered the lands of the Dunlendings and forced them into the mountains of Dunland. This led to deep resentment and mistrust between the two peoples, so it's not surprising that they sided with Saruman during the events of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. As with most stories from Middle-earth, the general storylines are already known from Tolkien's books. It remains to be seen whether the creators will fully stick to them and which details will be added that have not been mentioned yet. Roughly, the story of the War of the Rohirrim is about the following. The film is set at a time when the realm of Rohan is again in an intense conflict with the Dunlendings. Helm Hammerhand is the 9th king of Rohan. King Freyka, the leader of the Dunlendings, challenges Helm to marry his daughter Hera to his son Wulf, an insult that ultimately leads to a disastrous war between the two clans. During this dramatic confrontation, a stronghold plays a pivotal role that fans of The Lord of the Rings are sure to be very familiar with, Helm's Deep, the scene in an epic battle in the Two Towers. However, this film does not only put emphasis on the two kings, the spotlight is also on their offspring. On the one hand, there's the brave Princess Hera, who grows up in the midst of war and becomes a fearless warrior. On the other hand, there's Wulf, the heir to the throne of Dunland. Muscular, armed with an axe, and with a scarred face, he is the main villain of the film. The first scenes from the film were already presented at the film festival at Annecy, France this past June. As a result, some details about the War of the Rohirrim are known already. The movie delves deeper into the culture of the Horsemen's people, which is mainly centered on warfare. Family power structures and conflicts are at the center of the plot, with honor and loyalty seen as being more important than wealth and physical possessions. In addition, the movie also promises to tell supernatural ghost stories, a theme that can fully utilize the possibilities of animation. Concept drawings published so far also show impressive depictions of Oliphants and orcs in the thick of battle. The images released so far definitely make us eager for more and suggest a dark and serious story. In the finished film, we can presumably look forward to seeing spectacular scenes and a more in-depth portrayal of Tolkien's world. The female lead of the movie will be Hera. She is the daughter of Helm Hammerhand. She was not named in Tolkien's writings, so her character is entirely the work of the film's authors. By them, however, she is neither described as a warrior princess nor as a princess in distress. Her main task will be to show the audience Middle-earth from a woman's perspective. The first comments about Hera describe her as vulnerable and wild, a somewhat boyish character. She has red hair and an untidy braid, wears leather armor, and wields a sword. Gaia Wise will provide the voice of the princess, who is the daughter of actress Emma Thompson. Her father, Helm Hammerhand, was the 9th king of Rohan. He got his name Hammerhand because of a legendary action that we will probably get to see in the new movie. Helm is above all a very ferocious warrior, dreaded by his enemies and regarded as invulnerable. After all, his deeds have gone down in history. It's not a coincidence that the fortress Helm's Deep is named after him. The king is dubbed by Hollywood star Brian Cox. He is experienced in the role of a patriarch, for example, as the head of the family in the hit series Succession, or as King Agamemnon in Troy. The counterpart to Hera is Wulf. The king's son travels through Dunland, always looking out for allies in the fight against Rohan. He is a tall, buff guy with long, ruffled hair, armed with an axe and covered in furs and a torn cloak. A scar above his eye makes him look like a true barbarian. Wulf is voiced by Luke Pasqualino, who most of you will know from the Netflix series Shadow and Bone. Freyka, Wulf's father, will also have an important role in the story. Not only is he powerful, but he's also rich, owning many lands by the Adorn, the river that runs through Rohan. He also claims to be of noble descent from Dunland, which will prove to be of great importance later in the plot. Freyka is dubbed by Sean Dooley, whose voice we know from the video game Elden Ring. The last character worth knowing is Freyalof. He is the nephew of Helm Hammerhand. During the war, he mainly stays in the mountain fastness Dunharrow, which, similar to Helm's Deep, is considered impregnable. We don't know how he will enter in the events yet. His voice will be provided by a Hollywood newcomer, namely Lawrence Ubong Williams. What are your thoughts? Is a Lord of the Rings anime a welcome change? Or are you generally fed up with further projects in Tolkien's world? And if you could wish for your own spin-off, what would it be about? As always, we appreciate the thumbs up and exciting discussions below the video. See you next time. First, the action hit The Gray Man with Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans. Then the thriller series Citadel, and now The Electric State. The Russo brothers have the next project in the pipeline with an incredible cast. Brace yourselves, because here's everything you need to know about the cast, story, and production of the new blockbuster. Brothers Anthony and Joe Russo are still regarded as big names in the action genre. The last two Avengers parts, Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, alone earned Marvel almost $5 billion. And the Captain America film series is also considered extremely profitable and popular. It should therefore come as no surprise that several studios have their eyes set on the two and are hoping for similar success. Above all, the streaming service Netflix, for whom the Russos have already directed The Gray Man. Now, another thriller with a star-studded cast is set to follow next year with The Electric State, which is already being eagerly awaited. The Electric State is based on the 2018 graphic novel of the same name by author Simon Stalenhag, which was chosen as one of the best books of the year. The book is about a post-apocalyptic world that has been almost entirely destroyed after a war between mankind and a technology that is out of control. In this life-threatening environment, the girl Michelle travels across the country to find her younger brother. She's accompanied by a robot and an eccentric drifter. Together, the three of them have to deal with monstrous drones that have been abandoned since the Big War and are now roaming the countryside. According to current information, the movie will pick up on the book's plot but may change or add some elements. In an early phase of production, the Russos were originally only involved as producers, as IT director Andy Muschietti was to assume the director's position. However, after Muschietti left the project to shoot the DC blockbuster The Flash, the Russos took over as directors. Universal was also supposed to be the distributor for the movie, but in 2022, it was announced that Netflix would be distributing the movie instead. Netflix and the Russos have already collaborated several times. Joe Russo, for example, wrote the screenplays for the two Extraction movies with Chris Hemsworth. However, the brothers will not be in charge of writing the screenplay for The Electric State. It will instead be written by Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, who has already been responsible for the majority of previous Russo films. Shooting of the movie wrapped in February 2023, and post-production is currently ongoing. For the Russos' newest movie, the brothers were once again able to gather a top-class star lineup that is in no way inferior to its previous movies. The starring role of Michelle will be played by Stranger Things and Enola Holmes actress Millie Bobby Brown. She'll be joined by Guardians of the Galaxy actor Chris Pratt, who has already worked alongside the Russos on Avengers Endgame and Avengers Infinity War. Pratt will play Keats, a drifter that Michelle meets on her journey. The remainder of the cast is also impressive. Oscar winner Ki-Hugh Kwan will play the role of Dr. Amherst. Michelle Yeoh was originally considered for the role of Dr. Amherst, but she eventually left the part to her Everything Everywhere All at Once colleague, Ki-Hugh Kwan. The other roles will be played by Stanley Tucci, Jason Alexander, Woody Norman, and Martin Kleba. A number of stars will also be featured in dubbing roles, including Succession actor Brian Cox, the new Captain America Anthony Mackie, and Billy Bob Thornton, who is also part of The Gray Man alongside Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans. The role of the drone Marshall, who chases Michelle and her friends, will be voiced by Giancarlo Esposito. At present, it is expected that the science fiction film will have its premiere on Netflix in 2024. Whether it will also be screened in cinemas a few days before release, like the previous movie The Gray Man, remains unclear. What are your thoughts on the Russo brothers' past movies? Is their new movie a must-see, or is the project of less interest to you? Let us know in the comments. With The Batman, Warner Brothers managed to release a big hit in 2022, wowing both viewers and critics. Robert Pattinson in particular was impressive in the lead role as the Dark Knight. Therefore, everyone is eagerly awaiting the announced sequel, The Batman Part 2. Well, there is already some information about the sequel, so it's high time to have a closer look at the project. Despite the change of management at DC and the entire reorientation in the film and series business, the plans for The Batman 2 have not been altered. Although this Batman will not be part of the new DCU, he will belong to the so-called Elseworlds. These are alternate stories that have no impact on the events of the DCU. For example, the Joker movies with Joaquin Phoenix also belong to the group of Elseworlds. So, we can expect that the creators will be able to fully dedicate themselves to the continuation of their idea from the prequel, without having to worry about the other movies in the franchise. Which villain we can expect in The Batman 2 and whether Robin will be involved naturally depends on the story. Part 1 was based in the comics Year 1, Ego, and The Long Halloween. Whether there are plans to build the sequel on specific comic strips is sadly still unknown. As you can tell from the style of the first film, Matt Reeves is trying to make the Dark Knight and his antagonists seem much more realistic, unlike in the DCEU, for example. At the same time, he is also a self-professed fan of offbeat villains. In an interview with Collider, he once commented, "In my view, I just feel drawn to finding the grounded version of everything. So to me, it would be a challenge in an interesting way to try and figure out how that could happen. Even the idea of something like Mr. Freeze. That is such a great story, right? I think there's actually a grounded version of that story, which could be really powerful and could be really great." There are still a lot of questions regarding the exact plot. Robert Pattinson himself would like the Court of Owls or the Calendar Man as the bad guys. The court would actually not be that unlikely. It's a secret society that controls Gotham from the underground, very fitting for the crime and thriller feel of the prequel film. Calendar Man would be pretty similar to the Riddler. Instead of riddles, he uses special holidays or other important dates as the foundation for his crimes. In March, rumors started circulating that the new villain would be Clayface. This is a DC villain who appears in 2 versions in the comics. Version 1, Matthew Hagen is a treasure hunter who gains the ability to manipulate his physical features after being exposed to a radioactive pool. Version 2, Basil Baz Carlo is an actor who once played a villain named Clayface and now seeks revenge on those involved in a movie remake. However, the rumors came to nothing. To this day, there is no official statement as to which antagonist or antagonists we can actually expect. Of course, the Joker is still an option. After all, he is the only one who was already teased in the first film. When it comes to the familiar cast of The Batman 2, there are few surprises to begin with. Of course, Robert Pattinson returns as Bruce Wayne. Many fans and critics were skeptical before Part 1 as to whether the former Twilight star could live up to the demands of a Batman. However, he eventually won everyone over. Batman's ally in the police, James Gordon, will again be played by Jeffrey Wright, and Andy Serkis will also be seen again as butler Alfred Pennyworth. Many would like to see Zoe Kravitz return as Catwoman, but there's still no word on whether she'll be reprising her role. The bad guy remains an exciting subject. The Joker made his first appearance in the finale of the first part, where he was portrayed by Barry Keoghan. Afterwards, a 5-minute scene was released in which the Joker and Batman had a conversation. Whether he will finally get his big appearance in the second part remains unknown though. Director and screenwriter Matt Reeves keeps emphasizing that he doesn't want to make the same mistakes like those in other Batman movies, where the villain is more important than the main character. Bruce Wayne is to stay at the core of the story, so it might still be too early for a colorful character like the Joker. Instead, a different major character could come into Batman's life. Matt Reeves has long had the wish to reintegrate Robin into the Batman universe. The director has already stated this in the past. If Robin were to play a role, his story would also be very emotional. Like the first movie, Matt Reeves is in charge of directing and writing the screenplay. However, he is not alone in writing the script and is actively supported by Peter Craig and Mattson Tomlin, both of whom also contributed to the first part. Sadly, the start of shooting has been postponed due to the writers' and actors' strike in Hollywood. Originally, it was supposed to kick off on November 23, 2023, but now March 2024 has been targeted. So, we will probably see the first trailer at the end of next year at the earliest. The actual movie is then still a long time coming. The current date for the theatrical release of The Batman 2 is October 3, 2025. If you cannot wait until then, you can at least look forward to The Penguin series with Colin Farrell. The series, produced by HBO, is scheduled for release as early as next year, and will of course be set in the same Gotham as The Batman. Well, that's the current status of The Batman 2. Which bad guy would be your favorite, and who should play him? Can things become a bit more crazy, or should Matt Reeves stick to his principles and focus more on down-to-earth villains? We are looking forward to your thoughts in the comments. Netflix enjoyed tremendous success this year with its live-action adaptation of the anime series One Piece. The new adaptation thrilled fans of the original as well as new viewers. Next year, the streaming service will be responsible for another live-action adaptation, namely Avatar: The Last Airbender. Here, in our new original, we give you all the latest details on the plot, the cast, and the production. So, stay tuned! Currently, it can be assumed that the adaptation will be based on the anime. In Avatar: The Last Airbender, we are presented with a fictional world that is split into 4 nations, and is otherwise based on historical East Asia. The nations are populated by people who have mastered the bending of one of the 4 elements and can use them in battle. The so-called Avatar can control all elements, and thus keep the various powers in balance. However, he is considered missing, and so the Fire Nation involves the remaining nations in a war. One day, the siblings Katara and Sokka find the young Avatar Aang in a block of ice and free him. At first, he only knows the art of airbending, and so the 3 must set out on a dangerous journey. The still quite naive Aang must learn to master the remaining elements so that he can stop the Fire Nation. The first season of the Netflix series could very well be based on the first season of the anime original, and, if successful, also tell the stories of the other seasons. The original series consists of 3 seasons with over 62 episodes. The first season of the new series is expected to comprise 8 episodes. Albert Kim, who has already worked as a producer on Sleepy Hollow, will also be involved in the Avatar series, and promised in an official press statement that the new approach of Avatar: The Last Airbender will be an authentic portrayal of Asian and indigenous characters. He also wanted to carefully transition the animated series and deliver a multifaceted, new visual dimension to this fantastic world with the live-action series. Roseanne Liang, who already worked on the action film Shadow in the Cloud with Chloe Grace Moritz, will be among those sitting in the director's chair. Swamp Thing veteran Michael Goy and Game of Thrones director Jabbar Rassani will also be directing individual episodes. For the production, Netflix teamed up with VFX studio Pixomondo. They designed a stage that is equipped with over 3,000 LED panels and has a surface area of 23,000 square meters. The same technology was already used in The Mandalorian, and its effects were impressive. The soundtrack is by Japanese composer Takeshi Furukawa, who has already provided music for a number of movies and series, including Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Despite much anticipation, the production is also viewed with skepticism. M. Night Shyamalan's first live-action adaptation, 2010's The Last Airbender, is to this day considered a huge flop. The announcement that the creators of the original series left the Netflix production in 2020 as a result of creative differences is likewise unlikely to be a good sign. The Avatar live-action series comes with a mostly unknown cast. 11-year-old young actor Gordon Cormier will play the role of Aang. Cormier has already won over audiences with the series adaptation of Stephen King's novel The Stand and is regarded as a talented young actor. Kiowentio Tarbell plays Katara, while her brother Sokka is played by Ian Ousley. On the side of the Fire Nation is actor Dallas Liu as Prince Zuko, who hunts down the Avatar. Fire Lord Ozai, meanwhile, is embodied by Daniel Dae Kim, who had a role in the remake of Hellboy. Commander Zhao is played by Ken Leung, who some may remember from Rush Hour. The role of the cozy Uncle Iroh is played by Sun Hyung Lee, who also appeared in the Star Wars series Ashoka and The Mandalorian as Captain Carson Teva. The role of Azula, Zuko's mean sister, is cast boldly. The character is played by newcomer Elizabeth Yu, who is celebrating her debut with the series. If Avatar proves to be a success, then questions will soon arise as to who will portray the Earthbender Toph, who will also be joining the cast in the second season and is considered an absolute fan favorite. But the cast so far already gives fans plenty to discuss as to whether the chosen actors fit the drawn role models. An official release date for the Avatar: The Last Airbender live-action series is not available yet. Still, Netflix announced during the fan event Tudum that the series will debut in 2024. Until then, we look forward to more insights into the project, especially the first trailer for the Avatar series. What are your thoughts on the adaptation of the animated classic? Are you optimistic about the project, or do you foresee another disaster? Let us know in the comments!